for August 12th, 2019. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay, so we're going to start tonight, as we normally do, with public comment. So I would ask if anybody has any public comment today. It's time to come to the, I think, okay, you're going to wait? Okay. If you could state your name and address and...
My name is Dave Rand. I live at 280 Dale Street in North
Good evening, Mr.
Andover.
Rand.
And my comment tonight are kind of backwards, unfortunately, as what I wanted to hear and was your considerations about the Stevens estate, which you took up at the last meeting of the Board of Selectmen. So I'm kind of working backwards, and I feel that this is rather strange for me or for anyone else in town to have to do. Normally, the comments in the past have been done at the end of the meeting, and so that we could sit here and we could hear what your discussion was about a certain subject, and then we could comment at the end of the meeting. So I will not take up too much of your time with my comments about the Stevens estate, but I am truly interested in the Stevens estate and what happens to the Stevens estate. You have an item on the agenda for tonight from the Coolidge Place. I would love to hear that and see if it works into the Stevens estate and what we are going to do over that. But I would like to propose for you now to address this situation in a little different way. I don't think that the selectmen or the Board of Selectmen have to spend all their time working on a solution for the Stevens estate. But there are a number of people, myself included, who oppose what you were doing and what you proposed at town meeting. And so I spoke to you before town meeting, and I addressed this subject to you directly as the Board of Selectmen. And then I got up at town meeting, and I opposed you at town meeting. And I don't think it's fair for me or anybody else to offer that much opposition to what you're trying to do without trying to offer a solution to the problem. And so I think anybody, myself or any other member or citizen of the town of North Andover, should be willing to step forward and say, I'd like to help. And I would remind you that in the town of North Andover right now, we have several retirement communities. And I would virtually say that in those retirement communities, we probably have people with huge experience in business and construction and maintenance and everything else. People that have time to attend meetings, you people have to make a living, so you're working all day and you're doing this at night. But people that are retired can devote more time to these subjects. And I would like to suggest to you that you use, I'm not computer literate. In fact, I am absolutely computer illiterate. And I would like to see you advertise, not only online, but within the media, the Tribune and whatever media, else media there is. And ask for citizens to come forward who have a vested interest in the Stevens estate. And maybe, as far as you're concerned, pass this to the town planner and let the town planner or let the citizens committee organize themselves and come up with suggestions. And then when they have formulated what they consider as a serious plan for the Stevens estate, bring that plan forward to you and see what parts of it you like and what you don't like. And at that junction, or at that point in time, we could probably come up with some very wonderful ideas. At town meeting, there were several people that spoke that were very interesting to me. There was a woman who had experience in operating part of the town, the Stevens estate, according to her testimony. There was a woman from Mass Avenue who had looked into other jurisdictions that were running businesses, and she too was very interested. And I keep those people out there for you. And I don't think you have to, again, as a selectman, spend all of your time on this. But you could set up a committee of interested citizens within the town of North Andover and let those people meet if they have to meet for a month, if they have to meet for 6 months. But at the end of a certain period of time, that committee would come to you and say, this is how we feel that the Stevens estate should be run. And then you could put that before the town. Just my suggestion, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Rand.
Prelude. Hi, good evening. Ellen Mosier, 137 Cara Drive, board member of the trustees of the Osgood Hill, AKA the Stevens Estate. In full disclosure, as I was appointed, it was disclosed then, and I am redisclosing that I have volunteered at the Stevens Estate for over 8 years, as well as owning a local event planning business, Events by Ellen. In that capacity, only I refer clients to the director of the Stevens Estate to contract. There is no compensation between my company, the Stevens Estate, nor the town of North Andover. With my experience in the industry and the trends, it was a perfect fit for me to inquire as to becoming a trustee. Out of about 50 or 60 events during the year, I perhaps have contracted with the Stevens Estate. My clients have about 3 or 4 per year. Representing the trustees of the Osgood Hill, AKA the Stevens Estate, I am here to fulfill our obligation of an annual report of the previous fiscal year and plans going forward. The trustees of Osgood Hill has been waiting to have a joint discussion with the Board of Selectmen in light of the vote at town meeting and how we are already moving forward. Although we may not have a quorum, there is not a reason to not meet and have a discussion or an educational part to our meeting and learn and educate ourselves on the history and the commission as well as the Historical Society. The estate has been profitable despite the moratorium that has raised more questions and will have and still will impact, a negative impact.
Ms. Mosier, can I just ask a question? Is this an official, we don't have you on the agenda for an official government report on the state of the Stevens Estate, and normally we would get that from the chair of the committee, not a member of the committee.
He was not renewed.
Right, and as you've said, there is no quorum on the committee right now, so we're working to, the board has been taking it up to create a charter, a mission, a goal statement, and
If I could finish,
well,
Mr. Valencourt, so that you would understand. You can take this formal or not formal, but it is a statement.
Okay, we'll give you a few minutes. Okay.
The estate has been profitable again, and the impact has been negative on our reputation. We have already taken many steps to mitigate that damage. We were very pleased with the overwhelming support at town meeting to preserve and protect the Stevens Estate as a town-owned property. The town purchased the Stevens Estate in 1994, and in 1997, town meeting established the trustees of the Osgood Hill, as well as creating an enterprise fund account. The purpose of this was to separate the Stevens Estate from the town's operational budget and ensure no town funds would be used for operations. According to state law, Municipal Finance Chapter 44F 1/2, enterprise funds, a city or town which has accepted the provisions of this section with respect to a designated enterprise may, in like manner, revoke its acceptance. In other words, the enterprise fund account cannot be changed without the vote of town meeting. In the summer of 2018, the town manager informed the Board of Trustees that foregoing would no longer be a Board of Trustees, but an advisory board. that they were no longer as defined in the town meeting article that was established the original Board of Trustees. There was no official action or town meeting vote that the trustees are aware of. The estate's liquor license has also been brought up in several meetings. This was also established and approved as a vote at town meeting. In April of 1997, bylaws were presented by the trustees of Osgood Hill to the Board of Selectmen. Subsequently, the town manager and the Board of Selectmen decided that a Board of Selectmen policy directive would supplant the bylaws, such as what was stated in a policy statement in the warrant. On the town website, minutes of the trustee meetings going back over 15 years, as recently as this spring, were deleted from public record, time-stamped May 6 and May 8 of 2019. They have been removed without the authority of the trustees. After my appointment, I had plenty of time during my medical crisis that I had time to research and educate. I have read those minutes, I know they were there, and I have been able to receive minutes from previous board members. Going forward, we need the appointment of trustees to continue the oversight of the estate. The trustees need ongoing and regular access to financial and directors' reports as past practice since 1997. A positive announcement, the Friends of the Stevens Estate, capital T, the Stevens Estate, has received State of Massachusetts approval for membership fees and fundraising. We are looking forward to working with their board for the betterment of the Stevens Estate. Regular meetings will start and continue. With or without votes, we still want to be educated and keep on top of what our role is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? For each of us. We'll put one in Chris's package. Okay. No other public comment. All right. Next item on the agenda is a approval of the minutes from our July 15th, 2019 open session. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, motion the approval of minutes of July 19th, 2019, open session minutes as written.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion accepted. Motion passed. Next on the, what's that? Yeah, I think you said yes, right, Chris? I thought I saw your hand go up. Okay.
Yes.
So next on the agenda, we have new business Stevens-Coolidge, but I would like to take one thing out of order. Under consent items A, I see our police chief is here tonight, Chief Gray. I don't want to keep him. He works long days like we all do, but I think he has more important things to do at this point. So I think you have something under consent, and I'd like to move to that one first. So
Thank you, I
this is a
appreciate that.
request of Police Chief Charles Gray to close Main Street from Waverly Road to 2nd Street, 1st Street at the entrance of 1st and Main parking lot, and Cleveland Street at Main Street on September 13th, 2019, from 6 to 9 for a community event. So let's hear about this community event.
So the September 13th date is the one-year anniversary of the Columbia gas disaster. We ended up having to cancel National Night Out this year because of numerous items going on. Immediately after that, I contacted Selectmen DeCollegiero and Smedili and let them know an idea we've been tossing around the police station for a while. A lot of people have been talking about it. And National Night Out brings a lot of people, thousands of people, to the Hayes Stadium. And we bring merchants up to the stadium and have them, give out free things and whatnot. Our thought was to bring National Night Out and the theme of it downtown and celebrate downtown at a block party. So we're going to shut down the street with your permission and have a block party on Friday night. And Selectman DeCollegiero has been working with the merchants. We already have a lot of interest. We're going to have a great big block party to celebrate how far we've come since last September 13th.
I think it's a great idea. I told you when you introduced it, and it just seems to keep blossoming and blossoming. I think it's a great idea because, again, the merchants who've been financially hit would be charged with, which they've done so generously in the past, giving toys and great little things that represent their business or just fun. And they're really not in a good position to do that this year. So let's bring the business to them.
Not only the business, but let's bring everyone downtown North Andover and just have fun.
And
We're going
just
to
have
block the
fun.
street and just, we're going to have police cars, fire trucks set up. It's going to be a great, event. People can just walk downtown, the middle of the main street, and just enjoy downtown North Andover.
It's consistent with the theme that I think we as a board have struck and as a community where we all came together. I think that we all always are together, but came together after that disaster. And so much of it was because of our police, our fire, our building department, town employees. And so even though we couldn't have National Night Out, it's a great excuse to get together, because really, why are we thanking them? Why do we want to just further, interact with these public safety officials? It's because they literally saved our community.
And they literally put their lives on the line, going into gas-filled homes, police department, again, I've said this, the fire department, of course, we all knew that, but people did not know that our police department literally went into gas-filled homes to bring out the elderly and the handicapped at great risk, as did our fire department. They were going into gas-filled homes to try to put out fires. So, yeah, we
Let's
are
celebrate.
very grateful.
Yeah, and again, this wasn't an idea that came from me. It came from a lot of people, leadership in the town. Denise Casey did an outstanding job with it. Again, Selectmen DeCollegiero. And it really just kind of like got legs. And we're getting a ton of support and a ton of interest. So if this takes off like we think it's going to, we're going to bring National Night Out down to Main Street again next year.
I have to give a lot of credit to, actually, the chief had, within 2 days, probably, I think, 15 activists, I guess you could, representatives from the police department, fire department, festival committee, emergency management, some of the property owners from Main Street that would really need to be, I think, on board with this idea. Merchants representative, farmers markets representative.
I think you had those. I think that was you.
Well, you ran the meeting. Actually, I've never seen a 60-minute meeting run that efficiently. I think. Yeah, exactly. You guys as a police department already went down and engaged a lot of the merchants, and so it checks off all those boxes. It puts people right in our downtown. It makes a walking possible event.
It's going to be an absolute blast.
I think so. You guys have done a really. It's collectively.
Appreciate everyone's
dragged
effort.
Lynn to a lot more overtime.
Lynn's done a bunch too, and Laurie Burzloff, who's not here tonight, she did a bunch of work. So it's a team effort, totally a team effort.
People are excited about it.
I'm excited about it.
We know that.
I just have to whip it together in a month.
Thank you, Chief, for that update.
Okay.
And for all you've done to get this started. So now I guess it's up to us to give you the permission to do that. So
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request of Chief Charles Gray to close Main Street from Waverly Road to 2nd Street, 1st Street at the entrance to First and Main parking lot, and Cleveland Street at Main Street from 6 to 9 on September 13th, 2019.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Have a good night. Okay, so we're going to jump back up to new business. So tonight, we have representatives from the trustees of the reservation here. Thanks for coming. And what they're going to do is give us an update on some plans that they have for the Stevens-Coolidge house. If you'd like to come up and give us your name and your positions at the Coolidge house, and you can use the center's desk here. Yeah, you can use that one right there. Yep. Were you going to try to project it as well? Yes. Okay, great. Yep, absolutely.
Do we know where the
Can
button
we,
is?
can we bring this down, Brian? Oh, you've practiced, huh? Good for you.
Okay.
That's smart. Yeah. And if we could get it on the screen up front here, too. I see it coming. Okay. It's open, yeah, we're good.
What people don't know at home, our screen is in front of us on the other side of the desk, so. Can you see it on the front now?
No.
It hasn't come up yet.
Here we go. We've got it. We all recognize that place. So again, if you could just give a quick introduction, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, Chairman Vandercourt and members of the Board of Selectmen. I'm Kathy McDonald. I'm Director of the Stevens-Coolidge Portfolio of Properties, and in North Andover. Should I move this?
So just so you know, those microphones don't amplify, so you may have to, they still pick up for the home audience, but you may have to speak up for the folks in the room here to be able to hear you, especially
Okay.
since you're facing the other way.
In North Andover, I represent Wire Hill and the Stevens-Coolidge Place. With me this evening is Elizabeth Carey Sewell, our Structures and Landscape Project Manager, and Jeremy Dick, behind me, our Stewardship Manager. Thank you for this opportunity to brief the board on what our improvements are underway in our planning for the Stevens-Coolidge Place. This evening's presentation will touch on the history of the Stevens-Coolidge Place, the trustees' stewardship, our role in the community, and our plans to revitalize the property, focusing on 4 areas. The 4 areas are the gardens, where we want to create beauty and inspiration through new investments in horticulture, the visitor experience, which is improved through programming, events, and also visitor amenities, and historic preservation to protect the integrity of the house and our collections, and open space to activate additional open space for public use. Go to slide 2. Over the last few years, the Trustees of Reservations has bolstered its commitment to conservation, preservation, and the enhancements of our special cultural, horticultural properties or public gardens. The next phase of our investments is in the Stevens-Coolidge Place. This property represents an opportunity to welcome visitors and residents to enjoy the outdoors, appreciate gardens, learn about local history, and grow their love of cultural landscapes and conservation. Our plan includes the thoughtful reworking of our visitor experience and amenity offerings. It includes an exciting and dynamic expansion of garden displays, which will continue to support and improve the property as a special public garden and a gathering place for the residents of North Andover and the surrounding communities. Pictured here is the Ashdale Farm, a salute to the property's farming history before the transformation into a country estate. The Stevens family settled in North Andover in 1642. In 1729, the 3rd generation of the Stevens family moved to this present location. Helen Stevens and her sisters were the last of 6 generations to live in this house. The main house and wing date back to 1810 and 1830. Helen's father transformed the house to a gentleman's farm in the 1850s. Helen and John Gardner Coolidge began the transformation of their property into a country estate in 1914. Like Helen, John's family lineage extended back to Boston's founding. He was also the great-great-grandson of Thomas Jefferson and the nephew of Isabella Stewart Gardner. Helen Stevens Coolidge bequeathed her property to the trustees in 1962. It was her wish that the property be maintained in perpetuity for the good of the public. The vision of Helen and John is carried forth today by a remarkable team of trustees, staff, dedicated volunteers, and dedicated community members who help us. The Stevens-Coolidge Place is unique for its history and place within the North Andover community. It is one of the few estates in town that has passed down through one family. America's first preservation architect, Joseph Everett Chandler, worked on the property for 33 years. The gardens were designed by Chandler and also landscape designers Louisa Bancroft Stevens and Ellen Painter Cunningham. The Stevens-Coolidges were involved in community planning and made investments to protect the common and the idyllic vision of North Andover. This property has one of the largest collections, over 5,000 pieces, and the richest archives from 1761 to 1962 to tell the stories of this place and its people. Founded in 1891 by landscape architect Charles Elliott, the trustees of reservations preserves for public use and enjoyment properties of exceptional scenic, historic, and ecological value in Massachusetts. The trustees currently protects 118 properties across the state. 11 of them are public gardens. The trustees have been members of the North Andover community since 1962. During that period, the trustees have invested in the maintenance and care of the property and worked with the community to be a vibrant partner in open space and trail access. With a change over time of people's interest in visiting historic houses, the trend now is more for public gardens and garden visitation as part of that experience. This renewed interest gives us a reawakening for the Stevens-Coolidge Place, its gardens, its greenhouses, its open space, and the programs and events that we sponsor. People are more engaged than ever before in this special gathering place. As I had mentioned before, our 4 areas that our vision is focused on are the gardens, the visitor experience, historic preservation, and open space. We're planning a phased approach to our improvements to the property. Phase 1 includes the visitor experience and historic preservation. Phase 2 focuses on the gardens, and Phase 3 on open space, which will talk about activating open space on the west side of Chickering Road. This map, an overview of the property. I don't know if we can show this. If you want to follow the dots. He knows the drill. So the Stevens-Coolidge property is 91 acres, and it's on both sides of Chickering Road, as you know, along Andover Street. And the orange, looks yellow, dot in the upper right-hand corner, that is really what's activated at this time. It's around the house. It's about 15 of the 91 acres. So we propose to activate the acreage on the other side of Chickering, if you'll show that, which is a huge amount of property. It's about 53 acres. And what we propose to do is add open space and some trails into that side of the property for the community. Next one. So this is a walk through our conceptual master plan, which we've also brought with us, and I think I provided a picture of that for the board members. So I wanted to take a virtual walk through this to focus again on our 4 areas. In the gardens, our goal is to provide an unparalleled public garden experience of beauty and inspiration in the region with investments in the design of a new entry garden, which is up there, create new garden rooms, which are around the house and the current garden areas, enhance Helen's Meadow with pollinator plants and meandering pathways, so it's more of it becomes into the experience. Repair the greenhouse, relocate our events lawn from the left of the house to where it is on your screen today, and invest in a horticulturist position for the care of existing and new gardens with the help of our wonderful garden volunteers. With the visitor experience, we want to improve engagement, programming, activities for our visitors to do, but also visitor amenities. One of them is to open a new entry driveway from Chickering Road. The next one is to provide parking within the property. Also to improve visitor circulation and wayfinding through the property, to provide ADA pathways as well as restrooms up near the parking lot, to open a visitor center for orientation and welcoming of people, and as I said before, to develop interpretive programs and events for people to enjoy. Under historic preservation, I mentioned we want to protect the integrity of the house and collection through investments there. We want to continue our collection inventory and cataloging, and we currently have a new curator fellow who is doing that work, the inventorying and taking the photos and working on the database, and she will be with us for 2 years working on that project. Maintenance and care of the house, it needs painting. Inside, we have issues with a mural that needs some restoration. So to really look at what we need to do to preserve that house, and of course, our collection, and repair the greenhouse, which has some issues with the glass and so forth. And then finally, as I said, with the open space, it's to add trails and open space on the west side of Chickering Road. At the present time, the Stevens-Coolidge Place does not have a visitor center, so we have no place to greet our visitors and acclimate them to the gardens or house or the experience they're going to have. So a visitor center will really fill this need for interpretation, additional ADA bathrooms, a small workshop for courses, and simply to welcome our visitors to the property. One idea that we're toying with right now is to repurpose our existing barn on the estate. The barn was built by local resident Ben Osgood with lumber that was harvested from our Notchville property in western Massachusetts. We are committed to continuing the property as a gathering place for families and friends, old and new. Our revitalization will improve both the access and enjoyment of the property. When contemplating this project, we asked people in the community, in meetings, focus groups on Facebook, and through surveys, what was it about the Stevens-Coolidge Place that they loved? I thought I'd share a couple of quotes that we received. One person noted, "What a beautiful take-in. A lovely walk in the grounds is perfect in the spring, summer, and fall. Many family pictures taken over the years. There are open houses during the season that one needs to take advantage of. You won't want to miss this opportunity, a true hidden treasure in North Andover." And a thankful mother wrote, "Stevens-Coolidge is a wonderful place for entire families to take a peaceful outing. Surly teens and grouchy grandpas connect in this beautiful garden. Works like a charm every time my in-laws are in town." For the past several years, our engagement programming at the Stevens-Coolidge Place has been growing for people of all ages. Our youth program, which includes Nature Playgroup and Monarch Story Hour, thrill our youngest visitors. Other programs include the Father's Day Bash, which unfortunately was rained out this year, our current Unwind concert and picnic on Thursday evenings, and yoga on Friday mornings. You can check out the trustees.org, things to do, and search on the Stevens-Coolidge Place for upcoming activities. We have a great fall lineup, including Winter Lights, which will begin in November. We look forward to these improvements to bring the Stevens-Coolidge Place to new heights as a public garden, as a gathering place, and as a cultural icon that Helen Stevens-Coolidge had imagined. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and please feel free to contact me on the email on the screen, as well as we have information on our special website. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. It was a great presentation. Any questions from the board? Anybody have anything?
I don't really have any. I went to one of the public sessions that they had. Actually, there was a couple of public sessions that were available at the Stevens-Coolidge Place where they collected public input on some of the plans and whatnot, and I recognize some of the people from the audience actually who were at those sessions. So I don't really have any questions. I think there's certainly a lot of things you guys will have to consider through the planning process in
Yes.
terms of traffic implications and some of those things, which I have no doubt you'll do. I think, personally for me, the access coming off Chickering Road, I think will give a lot greater access to people on that side of town, because they will hopefully be able to walk there, and I mean, hopefully there'll be some sidewalk, construction or extensions as might be needed to facilitate that. But I personally think that's really exciting, and I already really enjoy going there. So I think anything you do is going to be additive and great. Sounds great to me.
And my only concern would be during events, when you have parking off of 125, will you be having some kind of a police officer or not some kind of a police officer or someone there to help direct in and out of the event parking?
I think when we do have large events, we definitely have a police detail. And with this new entry, I think we would have more parking within our property than I wouldn't foresee parking along the roads. Part of
But
our
entry to it would be off of 125 though, right?
Yes.
To get into it?
Yes.
Right, so that would, there'd have to be some kind of safety mechanism there with a
Absolutely.
police officer or whatever to make sure that they can get in and out safely.
You just made me think of a question, sorry, since you
Okay.
skipped this, which is around, have you guys contacted the state to talk about a new curb cut there and like whether you would be wanting to put a light or talking to that?
So we have been working with traffic engineers Van Ass Associates to put together a traffic report, both of the existing conditions and the proposed. And so they're working with us on working with MassDOT to put in the new curb cut. So they basically have been, designing our entry point, locating it, and they're going to give us recommendations on how we can manage the traffic flow there.
Sorry.
Good to know.
Did you mention a timeline as to how long you think it would take to complete all these wonderful ideas
I
that you
think
have?
we're looking at 3 years. I mean,
Oh, that's pretty-
optimistically, the first phase really is about the driveway in from Chickering and parking and some other historic preservation projects that we'll be starting. But that's really, hopefully, we would finish our permitting sometime this fall and then be able, in the early spring, to start working on the parking and the road. But it's a 3-year out program from now.
And may I ask the source of funds? Do you have them in place, or you?
We received a very generous anonymous gift that is doing the bulk of this, but of course, we can always use more money
Yes.
because
There's lots of
construction
things.
keeps going up.
It does, it does.
And so that donation was for the Public Gardens Transformation Initiative that the trustees are hosting, so it's going to multiple properties.
That's very exciting.
It's very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what are your next steps with the town? Are you in front of the conservation? Are you in front of planning board? And do you have some preliminary dates for those? Because I think there's some neighbors here that might want to have some input at some point, so.
Absolutely. So we're going in front of the planning board to do a site review plan, or site review application permit. We're also going in front of the Conservation Commission to do a notice of intent. So we're working hard with our designers to get those applications in this week, actually. And so
So you're not currently on one of their agendas? We don't have a published date
Not
yet?
currently on one of their agendas because we haven't submitted an application yet, but both the Conservation Commission and the town planner are aware that we're shooting towards this deadline.
Okay.
Sorry, when are we targeting to get on the thing?
So the application is Thursday, and then I believe the planning board is mid-September. I apologize, I don't have the dates in front of me. September 17th. Okay, it's on the FAQ. And then the Conservation Commission is late August. I believe it's August 28th. But yes, so we have those dates on our FAQs.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So for the neighbors here tonight, this was an informational session. This isn't any kind of a hearing or where there'll be, public input or anything, but there will be opportunities at the conservation and the planning board if you have comments and you want to make, you want to be heard. That's where the appropriate place would be during those meetings. So, sorry.
On the slide that showed where the planned developments were, we were moving the event section to the, I think, western side of the property. Actually, so like,
It's probably easier to show it on here.
We can actually pull up.
so my question more though was about the access now from Chickering Road. Does that connect now to Wood Lane, or will there not be a connection?
There won't be a connection to Woodland.
At all?
And currently, this is the house, and we've had events in this lawn and some right around here. And we've heard from neighbors about noise, and so we're trying to be responsible to their concerns. And so we've moved it away from the property lines and to it facing our own property. So hopefully that will keep down the noise and stuff. No, this is a turnaround, and we go back out. It does not go through any rush.
property, I just don't recall. This one? No, sorry, the new driveway off Chickering.
So
If you're looking at the map, the left of it.
the trustees owns property on both sides of the new road?
That, yeah.
Yes.
You own all that, okay.
Yeah.
Is it it's being used now for some kind of
So
gardening or-
some of those meadows are being hayed, and some of them are so wet that they cannot be hayed. And so I think we have existing maybe 3 meadows that are currently hayed by a local farmer.
And that would continue. We'll stop that for now.
Any other questions, comments?
It's very exciting.
Excellent.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move forward with governmental reports. So first up, we're going to have an update from the Cultural Council. Anna, thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, I'm Anna Choi. I live at 70 Maple Avenue, North Andover. I'm the chairperson of the North Andover Cultural Council. And I'm just giving you an update for basically this coming 2019-2020 year of grants. The summary of what the council does is right there. I don't think I necessarily need to read it. I need to correct the members of the North Andover Cultural Council in the second paragraph. There's actually one additional person that got sworn in, so there's actually 8 members currently. And so I can send that to you, but we do have 8 members currently. I believe the state just passed their arts funding, so I think we're probably going to be getting about $8,100 for this year. But it's unclear, and until the Mass Cultural Council tells us exactly what we have, right now we just have a 0 in there for the next year. But it'll be slightly more than what we had last year. I put a list of this year's grant funding. So I just for your own information. Okay, and then the kind of updates are under notes. We're continuing the pilot program for this year. So for the past 2 years, we are part of a pilot program out of the, let's see, how many people are in the 329 local cultural counselors. About 40 or 50 of us are doing a pilot program where we accept the application and then we fund them right away instead of having to be reimbursed. And so that seems to be pretty good. For the last 2 years, we've only had 2 or 3 per year that miss the information, and they're still operating on the same, the way that we used to do it. So 2 or 3 out of 20 to 25 is pretty good. Most of the other ones have figured out the pilot program and the fact that they can get their money right away. So we're doing that again. Hopefully, we'll have a 100% did you read the fine print this time. Let's see. I told you what our funding would be. We're required to do a community input survey every 3 years. So we did one in May of this year. The results are posted on the MCC website, but I think we did it through here. We posted it here. We sent out a press release, and we emailed everyone who had received or applied for a grant for the past 5 years, just to get input from them, because they are definitely people that knew about the Cultural Council. And we got about 250 responses, and so that's kind of what, like, we're legally obligated to do that every 3 years, so we did do that. We also had a grantee dessert reception at the library Thursday, May 16th, that was very successful. We had 6 of our grant recipients come, and then maybe 15 or 20 people that happened to be wandering by and wanted to know what it was like. So we did have about, 30 people there in total. And it was nice chatting with people. We were networking. It was nice for some of the grant recipients to meet other people who got their grants as well. We're going to start the new cycle in September. We're currently scheduling our first meeting for the year, where we have to talk about this upcoming cycle. October 15th is the deadline for grant applications. So after we meet in September, we decide who's going to send out the press releases, make the announcements, and then schedule a meeting for November to decide after the applicants are in on October 15th. And everything is done online. I think that's the update so far. Okay?
Well,
All right,
thank you.
cool.
That's a lot going on. Any questions from the board
Any questions?
before we let you off the hook?
I think you guys run really efficiently. I think that the feedback from the community is you do great work. Are there ways that we can support you more?
Oh, well, amongst the 8 people, some of them are very, very busy, and some of them are very new. So they're a little intimidated about doing more than just what we usually do. Our hopes are to have community events sponsored by the Cultural Council, and I'm always trying to push that to the newer members, but they're very hesitant. So when that happens, when we're actually the sponsors of things in town, yes, we would probably ask for help or at least inform you of what we're doing. But at this point, we're kind of strictly on the grant cycle at this point, yeah. But thank you for your offering.
And I believe you have a full board at this point, right?
Yes, yeah. It's a great board. We spend a lot of time laughing.
Well, that's important.
I know, at our meetings.
All right, well, any other questions from the board? Thank you, Ann. Appreciate your time tonight. Okay, next we're going to get an update on the senior center and the project. Lynn Levy, oh, hi, Jean. All right.
Hello.
Hello.
So schematic design was completed several months ago.
I know we all know you, but
I'm
protocol
sorry, Jean
demands
Enright,
that I
the
ask.
Interim Director for Community and Economic Development.
Thank you.
So the senior center schematic design was completed a few months ago, and we've proceeded into the permitting process. We're currently before both the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board opened the hearing on July 9th and have continued till tomorrow night. The Planning Board opened on July 18th, and the next meeting is August 20th. The Planning Board did conduct a site visit as well this past Tuesday. Several of the abutting residents attended, as well as the Planning Board members. I would say, I can give you my sense of the boards. Being on this side of the table presenting is a little bit different, but my sense is the senior center in general has been well received. You have a rendering plan. It's largely intact in terms of what you saw previously. 81 dedicated parking spaces, a 13,600 square foot building, 2 stories. The orientation is the same, the circulation is the same. The exit onto Surrey Drive after the first planning board meeting, we made a slight modification to change the geometry to further deter a left-hand turn coming out of that, so to keep people really headed towards Sutton Street. I would say that is probably the primary concern of the Surrey Street residents in terms of the senior center is they're really concerned about cut-through traffic on that road. I think the change in that geometry will really help. So currently, the senior center is finalizing peer review comments for both town departments as well as our peer reviewers. I anticipate having all those resolved by the August 20th meeting. But this is a little bit unique in terms of we're filed simultaneously with the multifamily development. Certainly more intensive use, involves a lot of traffic study, school department impact, things like that. And so I would anticipate probably a few more meetings with planning board. I can't give you the date, but I hope to get through the process by the end of September's meeting. But that's certainly an intensive review for the 136 units.
Okay. So if all goes well, when do you foresee construction to begin?
I'm still optimistic that it would be spring of next year, hopefully beginning of March. But again, contingent on the permitting deadline and then the bid process. The project really starts with the developer for the multifamily has committed to site pad ready, which means he has to take down the 2 structures, clear the site, bring in the shared access driveway as well. So the start of the project is really contingent on approvals on both sides.
Right. And once it starts, what do you see as the duration?
The senior center, approximately 12 to 14 months. The multifamily, longer than that, up to
Yep.
2 years, I believe.
But can the senior center be used while the multifamily is being
Yeah,
constructed?
we'd have to work through construction sequencing and entrances, things like that, but I would anticipate we'd come up with a plan that would work.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
So for Surrey Drive, you'll be able to take a right turn in off of Surrey Drive into the senior center
No,
too? Or will it only be
Surrey Drive is an exit-only, right-hand turn. So it's a shared access way off of Sutton Street. for both multifamily. Once you come in that accessway, you take a right into the senior center lot, and then there's a circulation pattern there that brings you out onto Surrey.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Chris, any questions? You've been quiet? No? Okay. Any questions from anybody? All right, Gene, thank you very much.
I think he's
Appreciate your
speaking.
time.
So Chris's mouth is moving, but we can't hear
Oh,
him.
we can't hear you. Uh-oh. Another technical
okay.
glitch. Oh, now we can hear you.
We're good.
One second. Okay. Chris, if you have questions anytime, just jump in, okay? We'll certainly make time for
Gotcha.
you. Okay. So next on the agenda, we have an update from DPW Director Jim Stanford.
I couldn't see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Jim Stanford, Director of Public Works. When I was here last, I think I gave an update in April of all the pending work, so this is just a routine. I won't touch on every project. I've provided a handout. Please take a look at it. If you have any questions along the way, just let me know. I will just touch on the major items that I think are of major importance right now. As I mentioned back in April, coordination with projects is probably our biggest challenge. Since that time, there's been the gas settlement with Columbia Gas, and our, I guess our roads program is starting to take shape. And I'll go right into with the gas company. We have 2 areas within the settlement that we're responsible for. One is the road reconstruction. Included in that will be sidewalks, making everything ADA compliant, approximately 13 miles of roadway that the town will be responsible for rebuilding. And then the second part is the Grogan's Field. That project's going along pretty quickly at this point. We hope to be under construction this fall. We have a few things that we have to get through first. We're finalizing the design. We're advertising the bid, I think, this week. We're also having a resident meeting coming up on the date of that.
August 21st.
Yeah, that's on the 21st at 6 p.m. over at Grogan's Field, over at the hut. We're sending out letters today to the butters. We just want to get input. Even though the bid will be out at that point, the bid date isn't for another week after that. We also have to go to the planning board for land disturbance. So the public will have 2 opportunities, really, to take a look at the project. But we certainly will want to get input. We know field projects are, on people's minds, so we want to make sure that we're doing it right. We're not really changing things. We are adding new fences, new infield, new grass in the outfield. We are looking at putting some protective netting. But again, it's not built yet, so we certainly want to get that input from the public. In addition to that, as part of our annual maintenance, we're also doing the playground. Lori Burzlaff is spearheading that. We'll support her in that effort. I think she's already taken a look at the design with the consultant, and so they're looking at just some upgrades of the equipment. I think she's even gone to some of the youth groups, and one of the biggest things they want to see is they actually would like a ninja course. We don't know if we'll be able to fit it in there, but we may be able to put some equipment. We'll see what we have for room. But again, that's all up for the discussion.
So August 21st is just for Grogan's Field.
That's just for Grogan's Field.
And is that going to be publicized? I know that you were mailing specifically at butters, but is that something that any resident could go to?
Oh, sure. Any of them are open, but generally we like to keep it small, just for the immediate abutters. And I think it's, so anybody that's going to get noticed on the planning board hearing later in the month will get that letter. But certainly we're open to expanding it. I think the hut can fit about 20 people. If we have to, we'll put a tent out and we'll move it outside.
Well, just thinking about those groups that use the field and maybe just wanting to coordinate. I don't know because I'm not part of the youth groups, but I feel like a lot of times with these projects, the groups that have asked to be engaged had wished they'd been engaged sooner, and so it sounds like this is the first opportunity to really engage them. And so even to just have it perhaps be televised too for those folks who can't attend. I'm just thinking too again about that neighborhood, and that's been one of the chief concerns among neighbors and I'm using that term more broadly than just the legal term of abutters.
Sure.
That they want to know what's happening, when will we start being able to use it, will we start seeing progress at some point? And so I know that they've been patiently waiting for feedback, and I think they would love to be able to weigh in. And I know that a lot of different people offering feedback can be overwhelming at times, but I also think that they would like to be at least hear what other people are saying.
As far as that goes, we've been working through the Fields Committee. So our subcommittee, we actually have members from the various leagues. But certainly, yeah, if we can open it up, the more input we get, the better we'll certainly be.
If nobody comes, nobody comes. If people come, it's because they wanted to participate.
Yeah,
So.
very good point. We are, for the schedule itself, we don't anticipate starting, obviously, till after the planning board. Again, that's just land disturbance, we believe. We hope to get the outfield graded and seeded, as well as the drainage work in this fall, and then work on the infield and the fencing and backstop early spring, so that ideally the fields can be used in the spring season. That's our goal. So again, that's all, most of it, with the exception of the playground, will be paid for through the settlement with Columbia Gas. As far as the roads going, I put together a process laid out back in May. I think I provided a memo. We actually put a pamphlet together. It's on our website that explains the process. It's more involved, but we wanted to get a jump on things. So we've already done the analysis of the first phase, what we're considering the first phase, which is south of 125. It's on the Osgood Street, in that area, Park Street. We chose that because actually most of those roads were in our program for this year or within the next year. There's not a lot of impact as far as sidewalks go, although we are going to make some ADA improvements on Park Street. And we're going to incorporate some of the other work that we already had planned on Main Street over in front of the school administration unit. We're looking at putting curbing there, doing the resurfacing. So we hope to go out to bid within the next few weeks, hopefully get a contractor on board for September, and at least start the drainage work and get that process going. As far as the town-wide schedule, that's going to be more involved. We have some ideas of where we're going to go next, but that's something we absolutely will need public input on. One of the big issues will be the sidewalk ADA compliance. Again, we want to do, we're responsible for all ADA issues with these sidewalks. We also want to fill in any gaps that we can. So, treatment, grass strips, how we handle trees that are, let's say, the roots are uprooting the sidewalks. There's a lot of discussion. So we'll plan on having that later in the fall, ideally after we've already started the first phase. Again, the first phase is relatively straightforward. It'll give residents an idea of this is what we're going to do, and our plan is to leave these areas better than they are before the gas emergency. So that's the gas. So that's our gas restoration. I don't know if you have any.
Just a question. So some of these roads were already on the schedule to be worked on with our normal budgeting, right?
A portion of them were. Not, believe it or not, there really weren't many. For instance, there was a little section of Osgood Street. We're looking at expanding that a little bit further. We've been looking at if there's going to be any cost savings. Believe it or not, of the 13 miles, there was less than a mile that was already within our program.
Oh, okay. So my follow-up question was going to be if that frees up funding to accelerate work on other streets, but it sounds like that wasn't part of the program.
No, we do think that there'll be some reorganizations within the plan itself. As you know, we post our 5-year plan. We have a little bit of leeway. We really want to take a neighborhood approach with this. We don't want to do what we do with pavement management where we're doing spot roads. We want to come into an area, get in there, make it right, and then get out of that area. In fact, getting into the roads program, our annual roads program, it's already caused some changes. A good example would be Lincoln Street. So we had Lincoln Street on our schedule for this year. We were actually marking it out and we were ready to pave it. And then we realized that it's surrounded by gas emergency impact area. So we didn't want to come in this year, pave that road, leave the roads that were distressed from the gas emergency, And it makes more sense from a financial standpoint is bid them all together and then do them all at once. So that'll be in one of the upcoming phases. So we are moving our roads program around a little bit to more for coordination.
And doing it that way, by maximizing what we can get in the bid process, is going to give us the ability to actually fill in, like you said, some of the gaps where there aren't sidewalks, for instance, where we could actually be enhancing this neighborhood. So we're not just restoring it, but we're actually enhancing parts of this neighborhood where we're going to be able to deliver things that for years they've just not been able to get.
And that's the benefit of the coordination, absolutely.
My biggest concern, Jim, is these are older established neighborhoods with, old growth trees that make the downtown area, really lovely and special. Unlike our country, we don't have the benefit of all the trees, of course, that they do. So I'm really concerned a little bit about, we know that the roots do raise the sidewalk, but I certainly don't want to be on a cutting binge to make smooth sidewalks and then we have no trees. And I know that's probably a tall order, but to go in and make sidewalks and lose beautiful old growth trees that have, would really be troubling to the neighbors, myself included. So I hope that and we also do have a tree program that you probably, with all that's gone on, have not had a chance to really tackle. But I cannot say this strongly enough because I hear from the neighbors in these neighborhoods and they want more trees and they get very upset. Sometimes the trees die, they've got to come down, but they get very upset about losing the appeal of tree-lined streets, which actually adds to people's property values. So I don't know if you want to comment on that now or think about it or.
No, we've been thinking a lot about it.
Okay.
Actually, again, with the coordination, we think this is a good opportunity with the tree replacement program. You're right, we haven't had a lot of movement, although within the last month, I've probably had 3 or 4 people that have contacted me who had dead trees removed over the last 5 years who'd like new trees. So we're keeping a list. So we'll tailor that in, at least the new tree replacement program, with the discussions, because we think that once we start having these public meetings, we think we're going to get a lot of input. And so it's a perfect opportunity to talk about the tree replacement program. No, by all means, we do not want to clear cut, nor do we want to, change the character of these neighborhoods with these old growth trees. We do have a serious problem, and it's going to be tricky to meet the ADA requirements and get the sidewalks upgraded without damaging some of these trees. Some other issues are elevations. As some of these properties go up, the sidewalks are 4 feet higher than the roadway. So there are things we've already started looking at with the trees relative to, a lot of it has to do with where the roots are. You can cut some of the roots.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
necessarily
in fact, we
kill a
did that
tree.
over around from the library. So we'll look at doing that first. Of course, we do have to, and this will all be part of the discussion, because by doing this, we may have to accept the fact that we may not get the full life out of these sidewalks if we leave the larger growth trees. But this will all be part of the discussion, absolutely.
In years past, they did start to bring the trees, it was some sort of an arrangement, and my house was one of them long before I lived there, where they brought the trees in onto the property with an understanding. At that time, the understanding was that the town would take care of those trees. That kind of fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
But it was sort of a nice balance that you've got these beautiful trees, but they not maybe set back far enough so that you're not going to have too big of a root problem. But just a thought.
No, that's a great idea. It's something, when I started putting the program together, I did present that to the town manager. I'm actually in favor of planting the trees on the backside. Generally, again, we're going to try and get a grass strip wherever we can. We can't always. You need a good 3 to 4 feet in order to sustain a tree. So in lieu of that, when you don't have that, putting it on the backside into residents' properties, provided they're amenable to it. I've seen other communities, I've gotten some examples where they've created an easement document. It talks, there are different ways you can do it. You don't have to do it so that the town will maintain it. You could set it so that for the first 2 years, town maintains it. After that, the property owner will, and will guarantee that they don't cut it down. So there are certainly things you can do, and that is a much better location on the backside of the sidewalk.
And that's what you mean by the backside, meaning more on the property?
On the property
owner.
side,
Yeah.
where there's room. And not everybody has that opportunity, but again, these will be good discussions going forward.
So are we planning only one of these public forums to be able to solicit feedback, or are we planning multiple?
No, I think we'll have multiple ones because we've got to get a better idea of where we want to go next. In looking at it, so this first phase, the first bid will be south of 125, but we're also going to include East Water Street, Lincoln Street, in that area, and that in this first bid, but we won't get to that till next year. And then as we go into, we start looking at other areas. Initially, my initial thoughts were get Grogan's Field done, and then we do those adjacent areas. We have some school considerations, obviously. That's always a big consideration with sidewalks. So I'm planning on having multiple meetings, especially as we, the big concept items, and then as we move into these local areas to get resident feedback, individual. So we can tailor that. That's not, again, but probably late fall after we get going with the first phase of the project. We do have 4 years starting next year to complete all the projects. My goal is to get it done long before that, with 2 exceptions. We'll probably have to look at Main Street, possibly doing a temporary repair, because if you may recall, we have the undergrounding electric project. We've already started the coordination with the utilities, not unlike what happened in the center a few years back, the old center. There are going to be impacts to sidewalks. There's going to be quite a lot of excavation. I don't know that we can get that work done in 4 years. So we're going to have to take a look at that. We're trying to accelerate that project as best as possible. But it's a big undertaking. But aside from that, we want to get the work done well in advance of the 4 years. I've already mentioned the roads program. So I've added a few. There's been a couple of condition issues with Great Pond Road, so we had to add that into the program. We've shifted a couple of other roads where we'll look at doing those next year. That's in the list. I'll talk a little bit about the Mass Ave, the Route 125 in front of the 1210 Osgood development, the existing MassWorks grant. That project is going very well. Sidewalks are probably 95% complete. Utility poles the new poles have been set. A few of the utilities have already moved their lines. We're still waiting for cable company to finish, and then Verizon can get in there, do their lines, and then get the poles relocated. It's critical to getting the traffic signal done over at Barker Street as far as because we want that signal activated, not just for the development, but for the residents of the Old Farm neighborhood. We can't put that last mast arm in till all the utility poles are relocated. Right now, if you drive by there, the wires are going right through where the mast arm will be. Aside from that, we've got one large retaining wall in front of the Remitis property. That should be going on within the next few weeks. And then ultimately, we have to meet with DOT, look at what we're going to do for the paving. We just sent the application in for a new MassWorks grant consistent with the town meeting approval for sewer over to the Amazon site, as well as additional road and sidewalk improvements going down towards the Amazon site. Not at their front door, but certainly putting the sewer in. Taking a look at it, we could probably have some savings if we hold off on the paving to the current MassWorks grant work, because the force main sewer is just going to go right through that. So we don't want to go out and pave, and then next year, if we are fortunate enough to get the grant, to go in and re-dig up the road. So that's a coordinated effort. We're looking into it. We have to talk to DOT about that, but we think that there's some potential there. Other I guess, Mass DOT work, the Mass Ave intersection improvements, that's already been out to bid, contract has been selected, and we hope they'll be starting sometime early fall, mobilizing to the site. That's another project where we'll have to coordinate our Mass Ave work with them, both in the gas impact area as well as some of the other planned work that we had. Aside from that, I mean, I've got a list of projects. I don't want to go through them all. If you have any other questions, certainly be happy to answer them.
I just want to say, I mean, kudos to you, because this is an amazing amount of work that you guys are managing. I mean, I thank you for coming and giving us this update, because I feel like somebody asks me about one of these things all the time. This is just, I appreciate the public's patience as we work through this, and I know you do as well, because you guys are only so many people, and there's only so much we can do, and there's clearly a lot going on and a lot of coordination going on with Mass DOT and the schools and lots of other groups. So thank you for the hard work, because I know this is.
During this aggressive rebuilding of the roads, do you have enough staffing to get this done? No, it's a fair question, because how will it happen on time? It's a lot.
Yeah, so we do have.
But the planning of it, exactly. I agree with.
We do have a project manager that hopefully we'll be interviewing within the next couple of weeks. That should help. Most of the work is going to be, for the gas company, is going to be through contracted labor, but there's always a coordination effort. I mean, you mentioned the tree replacement programs. Things have certainly shifted for us, and we've had to delay. In most instances, the delay is actually good. We hate to see projects pushed out, but if it's going to give us a better product overall, that's what we want to see. So.
And that certainly wasn't a criticism, and I hope you knew that. It was. We know what we've all just been through, so
Yeah.
We didn't really expect that to be like humming along with everything else you've had to deal with. But the fact that you do have it on the radar is really good. But I guess I would suggest that if the projects do become too overwhelming, that, you know, you need to let us know. If you need, even, what I'm talking about is even a temporary contract kind of thing, bringing in someone who would work even part-time just to assist, because you really do have a lot going on.
We'll certainly take a look at that, work with the town manager, and again, we hope to get all these done on time and on budget.
Thank you, Jim.
Great, thank you.
Great job, Jim. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move back into consent items. We'll be on consent item B, which is a request of Columbia Gas to excavate Ray Street extension for the purpose of installing a new gas line. Is there anybody from Columbia Gas here to speak to this? I see there is a man rising. If you just state your name and...
My name is Ken Wells. I represent Construction at Columbia Gas. We have a proposal for a main extension on a new road temporarily named Ray Street Extension in North Andover. The main will extend from North Cross Road, and it'll end on a cul-de-sac and serve approximately 7 homes. We currently have a stub off of North Cross Road that we'll be tying into, so we'll be off the main road, probably about a week's worth of work to put the main in, and then as the houses get built, we'll go back and do the services.
And when is this proposed to begin?
As soon as we get approval.
So you're ready to
We're
go?
gonna, well, we'll schedule it and be in a short period, yeah.
Are there any neighbors here? And I would move for an approval.
You have a motion, do we have a second?
Second one for the point of discussion. So what was submitted as part of the documentation for you approving this was a letter from Governor Baker that he sent to the House and Senate, and it was specifically regarding the Merrimack Valley gas disaster. where it's explained that the National Transportation Safety Board, in its November 14th report on the Merrimack Valley gas explosions, made several recommendations regarding safety, including that all projects be overseen by an engineer. It doesn't actually explain, and I don't know if there's a part that I'm missing, it doesn't actually explain how that's being implemented. It actually literally says that DPU will seek further consultation with the board as it implements the provisions of this act.
So
So
this
how
bit-
has that,
I'm sorry, go
how
ahead.
is that being implemented?
So the proposal that we have has been designed by an engineer and a certified engineer, and that's what Governor Baker is speaking to, I believe.
I have a copy of that, of the letter, would you like? From the governor?
I
You're all
don't need
set?
that letter. Your letter? I'm
This-
sorry?
The letter I'm
Because I have
referencing.
paper copies.
This is from
Oh.
the letter from
If you're going to question me on something, I'll gladly take the letter.
Oh, no, I just didn't know if you.
I know I don't.
There you go. You're welcome.
So now these are high-pressure lines, which we've come to learn
Correct.
a lot about. But so one of the things that we're often asked by residents is making sure that when it's a high-pressure line, though, that each house has a regulator added.
Correct.
So is that, how is it different than what you've been doing?
That's no different. That's how we have been doing it. Any high-pressure lines are regulated so that you do not have that high pressure going into the house. The meter and the regulator are located outside of the house.
So those are the same type of regulators that protected, like, for instance, we have certain pockets in the impacted area that didn't end up getting impacted because they had high pressure. This is the same type of technology that you're using to regulate them.
Correct, yes.
And obviously, you're working with our local DPW on this, and Jim's well aware of the work being scheduled, and, okay. So any other questions, comments? We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we have a donation in the amount of $230 from Samuel and Sally Brooks to the fire department. Are either Samuel or Sally here tonight? Don't see them. Do I have a motion?
Would move approval and a letter of thanks being sent to Brooks family.
So there's a motion of approval and a letter of thanks be sent to Samuel and Sally Brooks.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Another donation, accept a request of books to the library from Mildred Matasso.
Move
And-
approval.
Okay,
I will certainly second that, knowing Millie Matasso. This is just so her, that she would be kind enough to donate her books to the library. She's just a lovely lady, and if you move about the building, she is also we have more of her photography of the town of North Andover in this building because of Millie Matasso's beautiful work. So lovely, lovely lady, and a teacher, even after she's gone, she still wants to make sure these kids are getting, and we're all getting good books. So,
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion is approved. Okay, the next one is acceptance of donations to the Youth Center for the summer shows. And I'm going to read the donations, the donors, so that we can, thank them appropriately. MP Roberts Insurance Agency, $200. Trombley Brothers, Inc., $50. North Andover High School Class of 1959, $300. St. Michael's Church, $500. Lichadello Financial Services, $50, for a total of $1,100 that are donated to support the summer shows that are on the Common.
that's great.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval, and then we send a thank you to each of those donors.
Yes, great.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And publicly thank them tonight for their donations, but we will follow that up with a letter as well. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, good. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the appointment of Denise Casey, who is currently our Assistant Town Manager, as Acting Town Manager. The reason we need to do this is we have a limitation for an acting town manager of 180 days. And that 180 days for our current acting town manager is up on when? The 18th? August
Is that all it's
18th.
been 180 days?
When did that
So-
go? That went by, really did go by fast.
So,
Lot going
Did it
on.
go by fast?
so the motion will be to appoint Denise Casey as acting town manager from August 18th until, actually, no, will be August until September 13th, right? So she'll begin on the 16th, and her term will end on,
Well, you're gonna have to have somebody cover over the weekend,
Yeah.
so you do have to go till
15th.
the 15th,
She starts on the 16th
right, and she starts on the 16th.
okay.
through September 15th.
But as assistant town manager, if the town manager normally was on vacation, then the assistant town manager would be stepping in as town manager. So as assistant town manager, she would have that responsibility anyway. So we'll make an appointment for Denise Casey to begin acting town manager on the 16th of August until our new town manager begins, which is currently scheduled for, I believe, the 16th of September.
So moved.
So moved.
Second, that was a great deal of thanks to Lynn, who carried 2 jobs during a very difficult time. A lot of stuff going on.
Yep, 2
She
town
worked very
meetings.
hard.
Thank you
I
very
know.
much, Lynn.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Opposed?
thanks to Dee for
Stepping up.
stepping up, so that's great.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have appointment to boards and committees. So we have to the Sustainability Committee, Elizabeth Gilbert, Pranali Ashara, Christy Cunningham, and Fawad Khan. Do you want to take these individually? I'm looking at the appointment subcommittee and just speak to each one of them, or?
So I didn't have the opportunity, Mr. Chair, to meet with Pranali. I think that was a holdover from several months ago. Yourself and Selectman Nobley met with Pranali, but I'll say that in the case of Elizabeth, Christy, and Fawad, 3 eager and young people wanting to get involved. Elizabeth and Christy are, I think, both cycling off of PTO responsibilities at one of the elementary schools, and I think they both said to the other, you should apply to join the Sustainability Committee. And they both talked about things that they'd like to do and get involved, and they've done the legwork of reaching out, and vice versa. The chairman of the committee has reached out to them, and so between the 2 of them, and then Fawad is a little bit newer to the community, but also has the same level of enthusiasm to get involved, and so 4 really exciting people who are eager to get to work for our community.
Right, and Pranali, we interviewed her prior, and she is a high school student who is working on her Girl Scout Gold Award, and I did ask her to come back once she receives that. And she also has some great ideas around sustainability, especially in the schools. So just for those who may not understand what the Sustainability Committee does, it's a rather large committee, and people come to it with ideas on how they would like to help the town achieve, green initiatives. And we've got quite a group of people that have stepped up lately to do that, and it's really exciting to see all these folks with some really good ideas. They bring that to the committee, and then they work, they may get other folks on the committee interested in their projects. They work collaboratively, they work on their own. However, they get the support of the Sustainability Committee. And from that, we've seen some recycling programs in the schools and a bunch of other programs. So it's really a great committee. So with that, I'll hear a motion to appoint those 4 folks to the Sustainability Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, we have Jessica Furtado being appointed to the Poet Laureate Committee. Anybody want to speak on that one?
I will defer
Okay.
to my colleague, who I believe, again, this may be another one of those holdover appointments.
I believe it was. I believe Jessica was an employee at the library, if I'm not mistaken. And she's got quite a bit of interest in poetry, and the Poet Laureate Committee is a committee that seeks out a poet laureate for North Andover, and appoints that person as, or recommends that person's appointment as the poet laureate. So the committee is the search committee that works to find that person. So, do I have a motion?
Move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Jessica Furtado to the Poet Laureate Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have Linda Byers, appointment to the Disability Commission.
So it's really timely. Selectman Nobley and I met with Linda the meeting after we had sat down at this meeting and heard from the chairwoman of that committee talk about, her goals and objectives and what they need. And it was well-timed that Linda met with us and literally expressed a lot of the same exact things that Ms. Jones had expressed in that meeting for her hopes of new members. And so she currently works at a law firm, more local, providing support there, and has the flexibility and, more importantly, the interest to actually dive into this. And so I think that we were both very excited, and I won't put words into my colleague's mouth, but I think we both were excited that Linda had this interest, approached us, and so I would gladly motion for her appointment to the Commission on Ability Assistance.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No one. Okay, and then finally, we have the reappointment of John Savasano to the Board of Registrars.
I would move approval.
I second that.
Any discussion? Mr. Savasano, a former member of this board and a longtime volunteer for the town, so we thank him for his continued service to the town, as well as thank all those others who have started their service to the town. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, next I'll hear a motion to move into licensing.
Motion to move into licensing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in licensing.
Aye.
Okay, first item we have is a request from Burton's Grill of North Andover LLC, DBA Burton's Grill, 145 Turnpike Street, for a change of manager. Do we have anybody from Burton's here? Great, thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
Victor Antolini. I'm the general manager of Burton's Grill, Bar in North Andover. Here tonight to change the name.
So you're the current manager?
Current general manager, yes.
And is this our new
Alan
manager?
Marcus is the controller for Burton's Grill,
Ah.
working in our home office.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, so the new manager has gone through all of our regular checks and everything is fine, so I don't know if anyone has any questions for these guys. I don't have any questions.
Was there on Saturday, and it was lovely.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great establishment in North Andover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
I would move approval.
Second.
any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for,
coffee and.
sorry for having to wait so long.
Oh,
No,
well,
I
you can
would like
always
the
assume
sheep
it's gonna go
crab
along,
soup
you can always
instead.
do it.
It's really good.
Next, we have a request of Butlers and Bars for one-day licenses in the tent at Smollett Farms. Do we have anyone from Butlers and Bars? Okay, so it's a wine and malt license for a wedding on August 23rd from 4 to 10. All alcohol license for a wedding on August 24th from 4 to 10. And an all alcohol license for a wedding on August 31st from 4 to 10. I think they have also requested us to waive the police detail. You can see in our packet, we have the police reminding us that a detail is required. And the fire just commenting that the egress needs to remain open.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the 3 events that you detailed, and request the waiver of the police detail and remind Smollett Farms to keep both egresses open per the fire department's recommendation.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, and next we have a request of Smollett Farms for 5 one-day wine and malt licenses for festivals on the following dates. August 17th from 12 to 5, August 18th from 12 to 5, August 31st from 10 to 5, September 1st from 10 to 5, and September 2nd from 10 to 5. I think the latter ones are fall festivals. Not sure actually what surely the ones in August are not fall festival yet, but maybe Peach Festival or something.
I would move approval.
Second.
And let's see. All right. Same requirements as prior, exits and egress remaining open and so forth.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I think that's it for licensing.
Motion to move out of licensing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, so we're back to old business. We have one item under old business discussion regarding rental fees for the Stevens estate. So we expect that over the next few meetings, we'll be having discussions on the Stevens estate, based on the decision that was made at town meeting to retain the running of the Stevens estate. We've been looking at, different models, and last time we had some information on different venues in the area that had their fee structures, and we didn't really have a clear understanding of what the Stevens estate fee structure was, so we were going to do some research there and come back and kind of compare and contrast what we had coming from the Stevens estate and comparable venues in the area. So I believe Joanna provided some numbers.
She did. She worked on this for a couple weeks. The difficult part with this is the venues that we're using for comparison. I think we really need to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges as far as what the structure will be and what they actually offer versus what we think that we want to offer and the model that we want to go with. Because the model that we're looking at, as you all know, that we are eliminating and not renewing the alcohol license as of December 31st. Because in reality, municipalities shouldn't be holding a liquor license. It's just not feasible. We shouldn't be serving, as town employees, alcohol to people into events that are going on up there. So the goal is to really set the facility up as strictly a rental facility, where we rent the Stevens estate. There's a caterer, an event planner, and they hire their own bartenders. They come in, set up the hall the way they want it, and run their event. The tent, rent the tent and things like that. Some of the venues, the five venues that the director up there chose to do the comparisons and averaged basically on the five. The rentals are all over the place. So it's very hard to determine. I mean, you're going from $1,500 to $3,000, where right now we have a fairly high rental. It is up to as much as $7,500 for a rental to $9,000 rental for a wedding. Of course, we presently offer a lot more options than what we are looking to offer come January 1st. I think we need to do some further work on this, whether we get a group of staff, whether, now that I'm no longer doing two positions, I work with community development, and maybe go out and visit these facilities to determine clearly what they're offering and what they actually do. Do they just rent it, or do they do a lot more work and what's incorporated in their rates? Because their rates are quite different than what we would be presenting or what we would recommend. And I don't feel comfortable recommending the rates based on an average without really knowing if we're comparing apples to apples.
So what you're suggesting is that we wait till we have more information?
Yeah, I mean, we still got quite a few months to plan. I mean, December 31st is, several months out. I think we need to focus and spend another, couple, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month, doing some more extensive reviews on this. Like I said, making some visits, going out on some field trips, visiting these different locations, see exactly what their model offers. This is all new to us. We're changing the whole model of how we're renting the estate.
So at our last meeting, we talked about the idea of to echo Mr. Rand's point, that this wasn't something that would be feasible for the board to jump in and make their full-time responsibility, and that we kicked around several options of what we could do regarding putting together a genuine advisory board that could do just that, advise us on the ultimate fees that we select. Because even with looking at the average fees,
Yeah.
like I don't have any context to put that in. Does that still cover certain basic needs that the facility would require?
Right.
It also doesn't address, for me personally, the kind of limbo that any major functions we've already booked for 2020.
Right.
I think that we'd agree they're in limbo at the moment, in a weird way, where I think that they
They are.
probably don't have
Right.
concrete direction. I would think they probably have questions that right now we as a town couldn't answer.
I agree, and it's a tough call. I mean, you know, just reviewing these, as you can see, it's only going to generate a little over $100,000 based on the events that we have presently booked through 2020 and into even 2021. It's based on a calendar, you know, it's based on a 12-month projection on, the director looked at historical data as far as what she would have expect to book for events. And if we follow the model that she's recommending or that she put together with the average from these 5 venues, we can't generate.
Those 5 venues?
It was based on the data that Laurie was able to gather from all of the different venues. And the director said that she made a few calls out based on the list and picked 5 out of the full list.
The ones that she thought were most comparable or
Yes,
whatever.
yes. And I think we really need to visit these to make sure that they're comparable and that, you know, they might not be. I don't know, and not having the time to actually have invested the last couple weeks to work more closely with her on this as the finance director or even as the town manager, because it's just been, it's year end, there's a lot of things going on, not to make excuses, but I didn't have the time to dedicate that. Even as a finance director, I should have the time to dedicate.
I don't think you're making excuses. I mean,
Right,
you just
well.
spent 180 days doing a dual
Second
job,
job.
173 days. I mean, I'd go back to, as a board, I mean, can we put it out there at this point and say that, you know, we're looking for that type of support from the community to actually dive in as an actual advisory board?
Right.
To provide us with information, because even if you went and said, well, these are comparable, it does put a lot, like, we eventually have to make the decision, and I
Right.
always appreciate the guidance that staff give, but I also feel like the mechanism for that guidance is supposed to be vested with the board, and I think that it has to be more than just the fees, because I think that we are looking for short-term, like, what's our short-term reaction to the decision by town meeting, but what's our long-term plan for that facility? And so I would want those same people, I feel like here's a great opportunity to put them to task for helping develop a plan, again, short-term.
Right.
And then advise us on that plan, but also give us advice, or begin the process of advising us on the long-term approach to how we handle that facility.
Right. I mean, we also have to consider the fact we have, you know, you've got an acting community development director who's doing a fabulous job, but she's also doing 2 jobs. She's also the planner. So we've got a new town manager starting who might have some great ideas and connect, you know, people that she knows that could help out on something like this. I mean, it's one more month. We can.
In
and I
fairness
know,
to my board, we are 2 months after our last town meeting, and we
I
keep
know.
saying, let's wait.
I
And we've
know.
actually punted on a lot of things, and this isn't,
Right.
precisely
Oh,
because
and I
this isn't
know.
on you.
But
And
I
so
mean,
we as a
it's-
board
it's
should have an
tough.
advisory group either way, and I think that our
Yes.
town manager,
What I would suggest or recommend is that we get a subset of this board, maybe 2 members of this board that are interested in it, and create a mission, a charter, some goals, and a makeup of that suggested committee, and then come back to us with that
On the 26th.
recommendation, and then we can talk of it. But I think we need those things. I think we need the mission, the charter, the goals, and we need the makeup of that board before we can, you know, really make a decision. And it might be, you know, we've heard, you know, that they exist. I think we asked for them and we hadn't been able to get them, but I would like to see if we can maybe leverage what we have already. But I think we need to, you know, I agree with you, Phil. We need to move forward and you know, really start getting where the rubber hits the road here and start get a makeup of this and how we're going to approach it. So I would suggest that we take a subset or a subcommittee from this board to take an action item to work on that, and then come back to this board, maybe at our next meeting, or maybe that's too soon, maybe at 2 meetings out, and propose, or come up with a proposal that we can all discuss and talk about.
Well, I would certainly volunteer to be on that committee.
Well, let's discuss it. What do we think? Is
That makes sense to me.
I think it would be helpful, though, if we had Joanna or somebody who's in the business work with us. I think, or we should be able to have the ability to say, listen, we'd like to bring this person in to interview as we put it all together, or whatever.
Sure, I would say that.
Not interview for a job, yeah, I think everybody knows what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, that subcommittee has to be,
Brainstorm.
it can't be more than 2 members of this board, but you
I
certainly
understand.
can pull in anybody
people in.
that you feel would add value and to get to this,
Right.
floor.
Mr. Chair, I would then motion right now that we appoint Selectman Smedili and Selectman Keen to develop unobstructed, so have access to staff, et cetera, for brain picking, et cetera, an outline for what a potential advisory directive to an advisory board could look like, to then bring back to this Board of Selectmen for our next meeting, or is that too ambitious?
When's our next meeting?
I know that you're away next week,
It's in
so.
2 weeks,
I'm
so
away
I would.
next
why
week,
not-
I'm out of town.
Yeah, I
Why
would
not
say
for our-
give it,
That's a little-
for our
give
first
it
week
our
in
first
September,
meeting in
and-
September.
And that dovetails real nicely to when just about
Melissa.
our incoming town manager will be coming around to really help give us that, I think, additional input. I mean, there are a lot of committees that already exist that have tasks before them that she's
Yeah.
gonna have to come up to speed, and I don't think that this one will, again, at the schedule we're on, you develop an outline, it still requires then us as a board to settle. Perhaps we'll tweak things, I would imagine we would. We then have to put out there to the community, I imagine over the course of several weeks, asking people if they're interested. We then as a board will have to sit down with these people. The appointment subcommittee interview those individuals, and then we as a board will then have to have a meeting to appoint those individuals, and then they'll have to schedule a meeting. I mean, 4 months is not a long time
No, it
to
isn't.
put this
So
together.
I would like to, I would highly recommend that you reach out to other facilities that
I
are
agree.
municipal facilities and talk with them. I mean, there's a few of them around. I mean, just, for example, I know Winnie Kinney rents out their castle for weddings. They don't really, there's no alcohol served because they don't allow alcohol in there. But, I mean, there's people that are running these facilities that work for these towns that you can ask how they're really structuring their model. Because I know we've got a lot of data that Laurie pulled in, but Laurie asked questions, but I think if we're going to derive at where we need to be or what we want to do, we need to ask more direct questions on how are they running it? What do they actually rent? Do they do anything, or do they just have a contract that says you're renting the facility, you do
That's what this
everything?
committee would do. We're just
Right.
talking about defining
Right, what they need to
Yes,
do.
the
Yeah.
mission
Right.
of the committee, yeah.
Yep.
But I agree.
I
That
think it-
totally needs to be
Yep.
done.
So motion, I didn't.
Oh, a second.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion?
Do you to accept?
Yeah, you guys, I'm assuming you accept since you both volunteered. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. So, I guess we would look for our first meeting in September. And, like Phil said,
Is that the
reach out
ninth?
to.
Sorry, does somebody have it on there? Is it, it must be the ninth.
believe
Monday is the 9th, yep.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Not a lot of runway to get this done,
No.
Yeah, but it's important.
but it is
So
important.
that, well, that gives you
We'll be fine.
4 weeks.
Okay, any other comments or discussion there? I think that's a good positive motion forward. All right, moving to the town manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just update you on a couple positions that we have open. We've been collecting the resumes for Community Development Director that have been forwarded to the new town manager. She has selected several that she has forwarded to the HR Director, Kathy Darby, to start scheduling interviews. We've got to set up a small internal committee that will interview and then make recommendations for a couple of them to be second interviewed with the town manager, Melissa.
Are the applications closed now?
I believe that it is still open. We're still accepting applications. I mean, it's actually very tough to fill several different positions within town right now.
Yeah, we have quite a few.
Yeah, the treasurer collector's position is the same. I actually presently have about 10 resumes that I'm looking through. In the interim, we have brought in a subcontractor, which is an auditing firm that specializes in sitting in seats for treasurer collectors. It's actually a former auditing firm that we had when I first started here. It used to be Rogers and Sullivan.
Oh, yeah.
And this is Dan Sullivan. So he was one of the partners who went with a larger firm. They sold their firm to a larger firm. They still work with them as partners.
I remember the name, actually.
Yep. So he was actually in here today. He wanted, just to reiterate that everything in the treasurer's office is all caught up. It's
Good.
actually in really good shape, and he probably won't be back till next week because he doesn't want to eat up hours that are unnecessary until we get to a point where there's certain things that the treasurer can only do and none of the clerks can do. So, but I'll be in touch with him daily. So I'll be reviewing those resumes and hopefully trying to set up interviews in the next, couple weeks on that. And that still is open. I know the fire department has filled their admin position, where Diane Morrison had retired.
Who did they fill that with?
Maura Deems from downstairs in the building department.
Great.
So that creates a vacancy there. We always have this moving target here. You move from one place to the other. So we'll work to fill that position, which I'm assuming that somebody internally will apply, and we'll just keep shifting until we get to the last position that'll have to be filled. So, everything is moving along, and as Jim Stanford had stated, he's got his applicants in for the project engineer, and hopefully he'll have a good candidate there. We'll move forward with that.
It's so busy.
Yeah, it's been busy, extremely busy, so hopefully by the time Melissa gets here and within a month or two, we'll have all full staff for her, so that would be a good thing. Other than that, I don't have any other reports. All the departments that came and updated under the new business, old business, the roads and stuff were pretty much reports that I've had requested that they bring and update everybody before I was done my term. Good.
Well, again, thank you for the time that you put in, and obviously, there was a lot more there than you bargained for when you took the job, and we really appreciate all the extra time you put in getting us through not one but two town meetings and everything else, and the Amazon project and everything else that came out, so thank you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
I appreciate that you gave me that opportunity, and as I have said, I couldn't have done any of this work or been in this position without the staff that we have, because they all know their job, they all do it well. They stood behind me and supported me 100%, and I truly appreciated that from all of them. And last week I had a small lunch for all town employees. We had about 60 people that turned out, and it was my way of thanking everybody, for all their support and help, because they all did a tremendous job. And they all should be commended for it as well.
Team effort.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Selectmen updates and comments. Does anybody have anything tonight?
I just think thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would just say thank you to Rick Gorman and the amazing people at the youth center who put out all of the summer activities for the kids. I know Summer Fun and the major summer camp activities wrapped up last week, and I have seen a million accolades all over Facebook and everywhere. Everyone raved about it, and I actually saw a car driving around town today with the just got married kind of writing on the trunk that said, thank you, North Andover, NAYRS, whatever the acronym is, for an awesome summer. So they did just a phenomenal job, and all the kids that worked there, and it's really amazing what this town puts on for the kids this summer.
I'm sure, did your kids go? My kids
Yeah,
went.
they worked there too. I think what was great was that at the end of the year, he has a meeting with the seniors that are going into college, and they just have a round discussion, and they talk about, what's their next steps and everything. So I think that's really special too, that he just touches base with all those kids that are moving on, and, I'm sure they'll be back. They can, they can still work at the youth center, but, their next step is college, and a lot of them spent their entire, summers since they were very young at the youth center. So it really is a phenomenal situation for the kids in town. So thanks for that. Chris, anything from Michigan?
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
I forget he was here.
You come in loud and clear.
Can we hear?
Turn this volume down.
Oh, your volume's been turned down.
She was crackling.
Speaking for hours.
Can we?
Yeah.
We've been talking over you.
Why is nobody answering me?
All right, you're up now.
There we go. He still cuts out.
Any comments or updates?
No, we're all good.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Anybody else? All right, our next meeting is going to be Monday, August 26, 2019. I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
He gets to
All right, thank you. Thanks for everyone that stuck with us tonight.